Hello and welcome to the first ever episode on Vox Anonyma, the anonymous student news podcast. Please enjoy the silly voice and the serious topics we have up for discussion. Today we are lucky enough to have two guests, Cash Kowalski and Maria Soto. They are running as president and VP this year for ASUO. We will be talking with them about their campaign plan, student criticism, and their pet duck. Bunny. It was important to us to discuss the ethics of a democracy under low voter engagement, as well as the impact ASUO has had on cultural orgs, lately specifically NASU, so stick around to hear their responses to that. Now, I am very grateful to be introducing our guest. Hello, guys, can you hear me?
Hello, how are you?
I am good. How about you guys?
Good. Thank you so much for sending this.
Yeah, thank you so much for agreeing to join me and answer some questions and have some discussions.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah.
I know that time is of the essence, so we can skip some of the softball questions and just get straight to the meat of it. But I want to give you the opportunity to share your personalities a little bit more before we get into technical discussions. Maria, why don't we start with you?
Hi, my name is Maria Soto Cuesta. I'm an international student from Caracas, Venezuela. I came straight from there to here to college. I'm a biochemistry major with a minor in bioengineering. I am currently ASUO Senate Seat 4. Last year, I was PFC at-large member 1. I'm currently the RA for the Latinx ARC in Justice Bean Hall. I do research as a physical chemistry lab called the Pro Lab here at UO. I'm also a finance director for Mecha, and I'm running to be ASUO vice president. As an international student, I'm very passionate about uplifting international students. That's the reason why I'm part of the International Cultural Service Program, which is a program where we get to share our culture with the community. We get assigned presentations and requests in which we're basically asked to speak about who we are, where we're from, our different cultures. Actually, I do have a presentation tomorrow for a business class where I'll go and present and be like, hey, this is me. I'm from Venezuela. This is kind of our traditions, our holidays. I'm Native Indian from back home. So I am part of that. So that's how most of my presentations are about. And a lot of my work within that program is to make events. We have yearly retreats where we have international students and we all come together for this day of fun and we can talk with each other. And it's really nice to be able to talk to people that also share the same experiences as you. Similarly, I have been trying to bring more people of my international community into ASUO. We have 2 members of our site who are also international students who I know personally, and I have always been really active, really trying to get my international community involved. I got one of my close friends who is from Mexico City to apply to be an RA because she didn't know anything about it. Because international students, our knowledge on basically the entirety of the American university structure is really limited, so we don't know what's available. So one of the big passions of mine is making those resources more widespread.
I get a little bit stunned every time she speaks. Like I've been working with her on this campaign for something like 5 months now, and still every time after she speaks, I'm like, wow. The way that Maria and sincerely every single person that we are honored to have on our slate, just being around them and getting to interact with them is just such an amazing experience every time.
Yeah, and then I am involved in various student organizations. I'm really passionate about it. I truly believe that one of the things that makes Oregon so special is our cultural organizations, like that whole like Mecha, Saka, NASU, all of those cultural organizations and those events that they put on and like all those traditions that they bring to this campus. I truly believe that they make the campus what it is. They are the heart of campus. And that's the reason why I decided to join my group. Last year, I ran for financial director for Mecha, which is our biggest Latinx cultural org on campus. And we've been working very hard this year. We're trying to bring a conference. I'm actually going to be requesting surplus for the org this Wednesday. So it's quite a busy week. But similarly, with being an RA and being in the Latinx org, it's been one of the most inspiring things that I've ever done in my life. A memorable experience from there is I have this student, I don't want to release her name because private, but she was struggling for a while with adjusting, getting ready to college, and she's like homesick, she was missing home, and she came to me and I was like, Maria, I'm so sad. I don't think I can do this. It's so hard to be away from my family. And I understand that completely because in the Latin American culture, we're really family oriented. Personally, back home, it's truly the norm to live with your parents until you get married. So it was really out of my comfort zone to come, I don't know, 3,000 miles away or more from my home country, my family, to come study here. And it was really hard for me. So I was able to empathize with her and provide her support that I wish I had in my freshman year when I went through the same feelings as she did. And it was just very inspiring to me to be able to bring that comfort that I so yearned last year to a student that I really care about and have formed this connection with. And this year, in this term, she's already doing much better. She contacted me and she was like, thank you so much for all the help you've been doing. You'll be helping with me. She was interested in student government for a while, so we were talking a lot about that. She wasn't sure she wanted to run yet, but I have always been encouraging her to join as many organizations, communities as she can, because I truly believe that it's not about the communities that we integrate ourselves into, it's also about the communities we form ourselves. I'm very passionate about student government in general. I joined my freshman year after hearing the commencement speech. I walked up to someone tabling for ASUO and I want to get in here. And they were like, great, pass by the office. I passed by. They were like, you have too many credits to be the freshman year rep. And I was a little bit bummed, but I didn't give up. I was looking at Handshake constantly, trying to find a new opening, a new spot. I wanted my in, and I finally found it with Programs Finance C at Large 01. And I've not looked back ever since. This has been a community that has welcomed me, and all I want to do is to give back. I understand and I acknowledge that there's a lot of problems, and that's the reason why I'm running, because I believe that I can be the change that I want to see.
Perfect, Maria. Thank you for that answer. I want to circle back to the barriers you faced while joining ASUO later, Maria, but I also want to give Cash a moment to answer as well.
Yeah, totally. I also think that's amazing to hit on some more. But just to start out, hi, my name is Cash Kowalski. I use he, they pronouns, and I'm from outside of Houston, Texas. I am currently a student studying general social science with a concentration in crime, law, and society. But what I really am passionate about, what I really hope to do in the future is to be an educator and be a teacher. I am running to be the next ASUO president alongside Maria Soto because I have gotten so much experience this past year with an ASUO and got to see the amazing places where we've been able to thrive, but also got to see so many times where I didn't feel as supported and there was so much more that I felt like we could have been able to do. So some of the major things that I'm a part of is the Aspiring Educators Club on campus. Whenever I first joined the University of Oregon, it wasn't all the way from Venezuela, but it was all the way from Texas, so still 1,000 or so miles away. And I had a really hard time fitting in. I had a hard time finding my community on campus, and I really struggled. Maria said she has a resident right now as an RA that came and talked to her and felt like she was able to be vulnerable with her and be like, hey, I'm really struggling. I was really open with my RA and use my residence community as a support network. I was a part of an ARC freshman year, an academic residential community called the Media and Social Action ARC. Through that, I got to take my passion for creating media that really activated people and my passion for social activism to make events on campus, make a podcast, and also make a documentary about things that I cared about. Actually, the way that I got into ASUO was the same day that I had my event freshman year for the Media and Social Action ARC, I put on a student wellness fair. It reached almost 1,000 students where we got to bring together 15 different organizations on campus that all focus on improving students' mental health and giving them support resources, along with a bouncy house and snow cones and all those things. The same day that I had that happened to be the day that I had my interview for ASUO in the executive branch. I applied just because I saw a flyer somewhere that said, apply for ASUO, do this job. And through that application, I did my interview. I was super nervous about it, but I ended up getting the job as Secretary of Engagement. Secretary of Engagement, and what I've got to do this past year is the main part of it is putting on the ASUO Street Fair. It was such a transition from doing an event where almost 1,000 students showed up to an event where 15,000 students show up every single year. And that's been going on for such a long time. That was a big transition for me. And I was so happy that I was able to make an impact on students' life in that way, to create a space where they were able to feel within community with each other. And it's really important. I remember the street fair for me my freshman year was the first time where I really felt like I was a part of this amazing campus community. And it was more than just food trucks and craft vendors. It was really an experience. It was at the fall street fair my freshman year where I found the Aspiring Educators Club, which is the club that I joined freshman year. And that was where I first really found my true community of other people that wanted to study and become educators on campus. It was through the Aspiring Educators Club where I got to be a representative at the state level for the aspiring educators and educators across the state. And I got to actively advocate for and lobby for getting student teaching paid. Right now, whenever you're studying to be a teacher, you have to go through a master's program that for out-of-state students is around $60,000 for the master's program. And all the while you're working 20, 30, or 40 hours a week inside of a classroom, completely unpaid. It stops certain types of educators from getting in those spaces. And I really care about making that change so that students in classrooms can see educators that represent the communities and backgrounds that they come from. So I got to advocate for that freshman year. I also got to attend a national conference that was about LGBTQ education and supporting queer students, something I was really passionate about. And I really got so much experience from being able to attend that conference at a national level. And then this past year, I worked on so many initiatives outside of just the street fair and outside of just engagement with focusing on supporting efforts to get signatures collected for the student food pantry. I've been working with other senators on different committees on focusing on improving the academic experience for students at this university. And I've gotten so much experience and getting to really not only think about what I would want to do this next year with ASUO, but getting actively make steps towards making sure that the things I want to work on are feasible and things that we can get done, and actively working on starting those steps to make those things happen.
Wow, that was great, Cash. Thank you again for those answers. I'd like to quickly circle back to Maria. You said you faced a lot of barriers coming into a SUO and that it took a lot of resilience. I think that is something a lot of students can resonate with. What do you plan on doing if you are elected to lower some of the barriers keeping students from engaging?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely, one of the things that I want to work on immediately straight off the bat is the first year Senate rep position. There is a cap of credits that you can have to be able to be applicable for that position, which is, I believe, 48 credits. I had 49 coming in, and that meant that I could not apply at all. Right now, with the current economy and financial climate that we live in, there's a lot of students who come in with a lot of credits in order to be able to afford college, because not all of us can afford to go here for the entirety of the 4 years. Something that I want to do is make sure that anyone who identifies as a first year student, freshman student, is able to apply for that position. And that is something that we can work with Senate and the Constitutional Court into fixing that. I have already planned how I will be interacting with Senate exec and the Constitution Court to be able to work on that. Similarly, I believe that freshman students are the people that have it the hardest to get involved in ASUO because there's only one seat to specifically make for them, which is a freshman year rep seat. But all the other seats, which they would be applicable for, which are the finance seats and their respective academic seat, are elected before they even step foot into this campus, which it's a necessary means because of how elections are run. However, I believe that we can open more opportunities that are specifically made for those students, for freshman students, transfer students, to be able to more easily get involved in ASUO. Similarly, just students that they first realized of ASUO's existence, recognized us from the elections, and that inspired them to be part of it. I feel like we should create more opportunities for people like them to be able to join in the come fall term. And that's something that I can definitely work on as the vice president in trying to build those positions into our cabinet structure.
Absolutely. And just to follow up on that, that was beautiful. I think a mantra that I came into this organization with is meeting students where they're at, right? The place where I first found my community was just because I was walking to class along 13th Street, University Street. That was where I first found my community, just because I had to be there already. So meeting students where they're at is an important thing. And that's meeting students from all different backgrounds. Not all the same students are going to be in all the same spaces. It means going to the multicultural center on campus. It means going to the Longhouse. It means meeting students wherever they're out on campus. It means going into housing. Students are in a lot more places than just the ASUO suite. Students don't feel comfortable going in there. I didn't go into the ASUO suite once until my interview, and I was terrified when I walked in. There was something about it that just made me afraid. And another program that I run through ASUO is coffee hours. So it's an opportunity every single week for students to get to meet directly with the ASUO president and vice president. And I facilitate the background of that. So ordering the food that would be a part of it, the coffee, putting out flyers, posters, and marketing all that out. And the first year, my first term, I took what I was given from the last administration, and I was told, have them inside the office. It gets people inside, it gets comfortable. And then this past this past winter term, I moved coffee hours from being inside the office where we would see really over a 2-hour period, only 5 to 15 students, 20 at most sometimes, come to the ASUO suite, learn about ASUO. And over winter term, we moved them outside, we gave out crumble cookies, and we ended up having at least 200 students show up each time that we did outside tabling, where we were actually able to connect with them and meet them where they already were. So meeting students where they're at is a big thing for transparency and accessibility within ASUO for me. And then outside of just meeting students where they're at, it means expanding orientation programs. During my orientation program, I didn't learn about ASU at all. I didn't learn about really any org on campus, except for the things the university wanted me to know about that were departments or things like that. So including orientation, connections to actual student organizations and ASUO and understanding what that is. And then another thing that I was really happy to be a part of this past year is the ASUO internship program. So this is something that was started somewhat recently, and it was expanded this past year to include more students to be able to do term-long projects as interns with ASUO. So this happens during the fall and winter terms, and it's specifically aimed towards first-year students, although all students are open to apply. And two of the people that we're running with on our slate for Flock Forward were interns this past winter term, and they worked on amazing projects, and they got to do that as freshmen on campus. One of them got to work on supporting students with eating disorders on campus and really helping to build and foster community there. And another student that worked on a separate campaign about getting housing and off-campus housing solutions that are affordable, easier to navigate for students. They went through the process of navigating that, and they really learned so much in just that one term, expanding more opportunities, lower barriers to getting into ASUO. Finally, that also includes ASUO has the responsibility of nominating to different UO committees and also ASUO committees. So we're responsible for getting people in those committees. In previous years, that really happened barely. Many spots went unfilled. This year, luckily, there were so many, I believe all the spots are now filled for all those committees that we appointed for. However, sadly, that took a long time to do because we only had a single person that was in charge of all of human relations for ASUO. So when there was conflict, one person. When there was hiring needed, one person. When there was appointment needed, one person. When there was additional training resources needed, one person. So we really care about expanding out that HR department to have more capacity so that we can appoint more students and appoint them quicker to university committees and boards so that those students can be making an impact and representing the spaces they're in at a university and admin level.
I want to expand on something you said about student engagement cash. Specifically, how is your campaign different than the other campaigns? I know you have a lot of experience with organizing and getting students to show up as you've just said, and that's amazing. But I was at the town hall last night, and it was pretty much just slate members. That is not a hopeful sign for election turnout. What are your expectations going into the election as far as voter engagement, and how would you increase that logistically?
Yeah, I'm happy to take this one. So voter engagement is the thing that I'm really passionate about. I was really disheartened to see how the winter term elections went. It was frankly just due to some amount of disorganization from elections board and also some amount of that hiring process needing to be extended so that there was only one person when there should have been 5 working on the elections process. So it was really hard to see that and sad to see that election did not go as well and had such low voter turnout. I'm really glad to say that even though our election voter turnout is still very low as far as the percentage of the campus community, last year's election had higher engagement than it had in a really long time. And being out there and spending so much time meeting with students these past 2 days and continue to do it throughout the rest of this week, I'm really passionate that we have really engaged a lot more students than we ever have on this campus. I think a big component of engaging more students as a part of election process is having them be more competitive. Last year, a lot of seats went unfilled, and outside of that, there just were only 2 major slates running. Whenever now this year, there are 3 amazing slates that are running. We're really proud to be one of them. And outside of that, competition brings more students that are telling their friends to vote, telling their friends to get involved. And throughout the elections process, me and Maria and our entire slate, we're tabling Monday through Friday for 9 hours a day. We're having between 6 and 8 people tabling at a time. Sadly, the elections are where our specific spots we have to table are not where students are. They're inside the EMU amphitheater. So we and all the other slates basically have moved primarily out of those spaces to where students are on the main street, where we're also allowed to talk to them. We're meeting students very frankly, it's really hard to get somebody to stop when you just hand them a flyer. So we are handing out Capri Suns and Otter Pops, and we also have a bunny,
Mrs. Butters.
Mrs. Butters, which is the coolest thing ever. Getting students to stop and then it's not just about getting students to know that they're elections, it's about having meaningful conversations.
It's about interacting with the students, truly. I believe we can try to preach to them as much as we want of this is important, you should care about this, but what we need is for them to want to care about it. We need for them to engage with us and actually recognize that this is something that they do hold power over, and all we do, all our purpose is for that. I believe the student government should serve the student body, and that's what I'm trying to do. That's what we are trying to do with this campaign.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would like to talk a little bit more about the time that you have both spent in a SUO. You are both familiar with the proceedings and have an insider view of a SUO. With concerns among students about members rerunning and being too entrenched in the existing system to enact the necessary reforms, I'm wondering if you can speak on how you're going to change it and how you are combating that narrative.
For sure. I definitely, from both of us, I'm the one who has been ASUO the longest. I have been part of ASUO since fall term of my freshman year, and I've spent a lot of time in the legislative side. I believe that my experience is a benefit to my position, especially as vice president. I have spent a lot of time working not only with programs finance and student orgs and cultural organizations from inside and outside of them, but I've also spent a lot of time. That's what inspired me to move up to Senate so I could have a seat at the table where we can make these discussions. And I believe I've been able to really work on and be able to identify exactly what works and what needs some help, or what we completely need to scratch and change from ASUO. I believe we have a head start in terms of what we want to do. We have goals that are achievable and accomplishable because we know the extent of what ASUO is able to do. And off the record, I think that a lot of these things that are going to be promised to students by other slates and campaigns, they maybe are underestimating the time and resources that will take to complete these promises. And it is not quite realistic. And I believe people may be misinformed by them. We are trying to run an honest campaign where whatever we promise are things that we know we can accomplish. And truly, our biggest passion is meeting students where they're at. We want to be there to listen to students and know what they believe should change about. We will have the knowledge to know how we will change it.
Yeah, also just to follow up on that really quickly, ASUO and the Senate specifically is supposed to function so that almost all the seats run for 2-year-long positions. ASUO is a very complicated organization, and learning about the history of budget processes, getting the information and knowledge transfer is so vitally important to be able to be successful for every single person within ASUO. It's designed so that around half the Senate, or around 10 to 12 seats, are 2-year positions that will be continuing from the previous year. This year, by nature of having many people that were going into their senior year that applied for 2-year seats, we really only have 3 positions within ASUO Senate, I believe off the top of my head, that are going to continue forward. Without increased number of people that are able to continue forward with ASUO, we lose a significant amount of training support for new leaders, and we also lose a significant amount of resources in history, right? Having strong transitions is what makes student government successful. We are running to be just 1 year in history of over 100 years of students that are passionate about making change that represents and advocates for what students need at that specific time. While I think that we have a lot of amazing ideas, ASUO is an organization that has so much to build from, and that is so amazing. And so many of the people that are on our slate are, yes, we have about 10 people, or about half the people on our slate have some sort of experience in ASUO, and about half that have never been involved in ASUO, but are involved on campus in some other way and bring different perspectives. I think that often we feel that because we come from different places, we need to work against each other. And in working against each other, we lose so much energy and time and passion, when really what we're trying to do is recognize that all of us come from different backgrounds. All of us come from different spaces and understandings and communities. However, we want to take those different spaces we come from and our different perspectives and use those to build towards something new and put all of our energy collectively into something. So that's some major things that I wanted to share.
As a SUO members this year, there's been a lot of students and student organizations that have been unhappy with some of the decisions made. I know you are both engaged with the SUO in different capacities, so I'm interested to see how your answers will vary to this question. But I'm wondering specifically how your relationships with groups like NASU and Augsburg have changed. Maria, with you as an active senator during the NASU Senate, and Cash as one of the executives with a totally different perspective on the situation, graduation from a SUO. I'm wondering how you both plan on repairing these relationships with student organizations, specifically marginalized ones as well.
Absolutely. I'll start by saying that the experience that I've had this past year with ASUO and the amount of conversations and feelings that I felt have been so impactful on me and have changed so much about how I see and shape my candidacy and why I'm running. I think that ASUO, because of history that long predates the people that are in this room, the people that are running for elections this year, there is so much restorative healing and conversations and connections that need to be had. As an educator, that's a really core part of the work that I've been doing. I not only am studying to be an educator, but I'm currently a substitute teacher. So I have experience in the classroom and I know what it means to have a restorative conversation, and I know how important that is. I think that collaboration is important too. It's really challenging for me that this elections process, we go through things like debates and we're really pushing to get voters over other slates and all those things, when really every single person that's running on a ticket, I am inspired by, I think is powerful, and I'm thrilled by the ideas that they're bringing into the space, and I'm so glad they're a part of it. Actually, this weekend on Saturday, I've been working for the past term with ASUO, through ASUO, to do a co-sponsored event between ASUO and ROAR, an organization that Max Jensen and Maxwell are a part of and co-directors for. And ROAR have been working on a co-sponsored event called The Future of Work that brings together union perspectives to a broader student population and supports all students in being able to advocate for themselves in the workplace in the future. I think that it's very clear that ASUO has been an organization that hasn't really worked well with other student organizations, and there's been a lot of conflict that has persisted and is still a part of the fabric of the way that ASUO operates. And I think I've already started taking active steps to make that more of a restorative conversation. The biggest thing for me, being in the audience at the NASU sit-in, was listening and hearing what they had to say. And I took so much away from that moment. And I spent a lot of time processing and having further conversations afterward the fact with NASU community members about what they said and what they were feeling. And a major takeaway that I had is that even despite, and what I thought was so commendable was, even despite being hurt by ASUO and feeling that hurt, not just this year, but last year through the sit-in that they had then, was despite all that, we still want you to come to our spaces. We still want you to see us. We want you to be a part of our community. We want you to see our joy and our family. Come to the powwow. Come to Community and Culture Night. Going to Community and Culture Night this winter term has been one of the most amazing student org events that I was able to attend, and I was so honored to be invited to that. And I'll also say that the first interaction that I had with ASUO was hearing about NASU's budget process freshman term. And that was the first time I ever attended a Senate meeting, was as somebody that was sitting in at that meeting, standing alongside Tira, who's a current co-director and was then one of the members that was a part of my ARC freshman year, and getting to stand with them in that room and see them talk to senators. I believe that was the first time me and Maria were even in the same room together, actually. I think that both of those experiences have been so impactful for me and have really made me think a lot about how I want this next year to run and how to focus more on just, both of us are also part of the Protect the Powwow resolution committee, and it has to be more than a resolution. A resolution is just words on a paper, but what really needs to change is the relationships that people have with one another and the connections we form. And we need to make really substantial change that's outside of what ASUO normally has the tools to do. ASUO is not just resolutions, dispersing the IFE, and interacting with students. It is absolutely building connections with others on campus and working to have these restorative and healing conversations.
Yeah, I definitely had a similar yet different experience coming from my background and then how I was at Senate that night. It was definitely a wake-up call. It was something very strong to witness. However, I don't believe that it has changed my view on how I collaborate and how I see cultural organizations. I have a really high regard and they're really important to me, cultural organizations. I am part of one. They have made me feel like I actually belong in this campus multiple times. I have always and will always strive for the best for the cultural organizations because I believe it's, as I said before, what makes this campus special and something that ASUO should continue to support always. And it's something that I plan to definitely advocate if we do become next ASUO president and vice president for next year, is Permanent Finance Committee benchmarks. I want PFC to have higher benchmarks, to have a higher budget so that they can distribute higher amount of funds to every student organization on campus. And our biggest student organizations are cultural organizations, which is exactly as it should be. And they should be receiving these increases that they're not only asking us for, but they're begging us for, and they deserve due to all the work they do on this campus. So I don't believe that really strong conversation, that really strong presentation affected how it definitely affected what I'm going to do doing forward. I'm definitely going to be more outspoken about my views and my support towards culture organizations. But it's something that I've been working on from way before, and something that I will continue to work on, because cultural organizations are the heart of this campus.
Says Protect the Powwow committee members. Do you have any news or opinions on the spring concert happening or not happening?
Yes, for sure. I believe that it should have definitely been canceled. It was a communication error, definitely on ASUO's part. It should have been a mistake that never should have happened. We should have been in open communication with NASU, given the fact that this happened last year. I wasn't aware that it had happened last year, as I was just a PFC member. I wasn't updated on the Bayer executives' goings at the time, which I believe is a massive mistake. Internal communication is essential, and it's something that I'm trying to bring with me towards my term. But canceling the concert was a necessity that had to happen. And the resolution is something that I am very confident we'll be able to work on and get done as soon as possible. But again, as Cash said, I don't believe it's enough. Resolutions are not binding, and we need something that will stand here and stand within ASUO way longer after our term. I want something that is binding, that will guarantee that this won't happen, not only to NASU, but to any other culture organizations. I would love to bring a committee or a group of, I want to meet with every single director of the student organizations. And maybe, I know we all have events that are done every single year. Mitcha has a senior celebration night, NASU has a powwow, BSA has their winter bowl event. We all have these yearly traditions that I believe should be in a calendar within ASUO with the big red words, "Do not touch," because it's historic, it's tradition, and who are we to step over that?
Absolutely. I'll also add just supporting orgs and even reserving those spaces ahead of time. So outside of the NASU powwow, many of the other orgs hold them in the ballroom in the EMU, which is a very hard space to get. So being able to reserve those for supporting orgs and reserving those for several years ahead of time so that those are able to be booked out in advance and then added to that calendar as at a prepared reoccurring date is a thing that's important. I know as a student org leader, it's hard to schedule things that far in advance. So providing support for that. And I think that everything else you said was absolutely so true and amazing. Just to add some more context about the concert and things that I think are important to share is that we had a large surplus and we wanted to spend that on things that students cared about. And our entire incentive behind doing that was to listen to students and provide them on-campus opportunities where they could be in collaboration and community with one another. However, clearly, after hearing NASU, that was not what students wanted, right? That is something that we really need to be receptive to. And we also this year was able to put on a Battle of the Bands concert at Wow Hall. It was closer to campus. It costed a significantly less amount of money on as far as taking from surplus. And I know as a student organization leader, the Aspiring Educators Club, this is our first year having a budget, and our budget is only $500. That's what organizations that it's their first year, they only get $500 of a budget. So I know how much $350,000 really is because my entire organization of, I believe 50 people is our average attendance, and we have over 120 people on our Engage. $500 for that compared to $350,000 for a concert is just not, it's not the right use of funding, because the best place where we can put funding from students is back into students' pockets, into supporting events that they want to put on, into supporting the student leaders that care about putting on those events. The money, where the money that ASUO has is best to go is directly back to students and them putting it into initiatives they care about. So thank you.
So I am correct in assuming the concert is not happening.
Concert has 100% been canceled. We have been in discussion back and forth. Again, that is exec. I, as a senator, don't really have that much knowledge, but I have been actively trying to get that information specifically for the committee and our community members from NASU, who, again, they don't really have anyone on the side. I want to provide that information. And from my knowledge, the concert has completely been canceled, and we're in the works of terminating those contracts and securing agreements between us and the companies that we hired to secure the talent for the concert, to make sure that we are not endangering those or burning those bridges for any of the cultural or student organizations that would want to hold an event similar to that and would need to use those resources. And speaking of the concert, I believe that the students have spoken. We do not want a concert. I don't believe that this is a good use of funds for next year either. I do not plan to host a concert under my administration. I believe that Battle of the Bands is a great event because it is supporting students. We're having students play, we're having students watch, we're having students engage with us. I believe that is amazing. We should continue to have that. But a massive concert that we're trying to just emulate what other bigger schools have with a bigger budget, which has actual pro staff working on holding these concerts, I don't think it's realistic for us to be able to conduct or try to emulate that. And it's not something that students want. And again, this is student government. We're here for the students.
Cash, I want to ask about something my publication has been pretty vocal about, which is the more ethical implications of being elected under low voter turnout and what it means for a democracy to function under low voter engagement. I want to know how you feel about that. In the prospect of becoming a leader of democracy on campus, it's very interesting to me that you acknowledge that students are saying something different than the people currently in the room making the decisions. What I'm wondering is how you are going to make those two opinions more in line with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to get on the elections process and how that's really been a struggle for everyone involved. It's a struggle for students not being able to get engaged. And also on our end, there have been a lot of different things that have made this election process really hard as far as logistics and how to get through that. So I also just want to share that there are currently 2 people on our slate that are actively working on an election reform package to work on and really make sure that it's published before next year's elections and advocate for that. It would include things like making sure that currently all the people that are running for ASUO elections have to pay for every single thing that's part of their campaign materials independently without the support of IFE funding. And we're capped at $2,000 per slate to do that. So that's all coming directly out of our pockets. So that is every single person on our slate. In the past, it's been to be a part of a slate, you need to contribute a certain amount of money. For us, we wanted to make sure that that wasn't a burden for students to join our slate and to be able to be a part of student government. So we said, hey, here's maybe like a recommended contribution to support us in getting all the campaign materials we need. But whatever you can cover, both me and Maria said that we will support in covering anything extra. But overall, it is completely inequitable for who is able to run for office whenever you are required to pay for every single thing that you need for campaign materials. For us, that includes flyers, it includes stickers, it includes Capri Suns or anything that we want to give out to students. It includes a tablecloth, anything that's involved with that. It ends up being really expensive and it creates a huge burden to be able to run in ASU elections. That's one thing. Additionally, students, if any of the races as a part of this election don't get at least 50% of the vote, which whenever there are about 3 to 4, in very few cases, 3 in most, and then sometimes 4 people running for each seat, there's a large likelihood that there's going to be runoff elections. Those runoff elections only happen for 24 hours, and all students have to re-vote in those elections, which makes those last two, those between those 2 people, there's even less voter turnout between those elections. So we want to make it so students, when they vote, just vote once, and there's a ranked choice voting method where you vote my top candidate, second, third, however long it goes, so that then whenever, if you voted for a candidate that got knocked out in that process, your vote would go to your second or third choice, so that we wouldn't need to do a runoff. It would shorten the length of elections, and it would better the experience for students, and it would make sure that was more equitable in that sense. I know that there are more parts of that policy as far as the duration of campaigning, other things like that, but it is clear that everyone a part of this election process and students feel that the current election process is inequitable, and there are changes that we're actively working on making that are tangible, feasible, that we're really excited to be able to implement in the future, so that future elections, just like you said, it's just as it's important to your organization, Anonymous Student News, it's so important to us that elections and students are engaging as much in this process, because it's not only just about the elections process and making sure students have representatives that represent who they are in those spaces, but the power that student government has is not just from student funding. It is from the student's voice, being able to be connected to that and actively listening to that throughout the entire year, and that also being able to take that voice to administrators and advocating for what students need, and then also take that voice to the state and lobby for students at the Capitol. Next year is going to be a long session of the Capitol, so we will be spending a lot of time advocating to get things that students care about funded by our state legislature. Because as important as the advocacy that we want to do is, at the end of the day, we are a group of about 60 students, and we alone cannot make the impact. It takes every single student on this campus to be actively involved and engaged in ASUO to make that happen. Another thing we hope to add in the future as a part of expanding our HR department is a secretary of research. So somebody that throughout the entire year that can have experience in and conduct surveys of the students that can be rewarded with engagement for getting a gift card or something along the lines that like rewards them for participating or entering into a drawing, and also conducting focus group of students, direct conversations, having ways of getting tangible research, working with GEs and other people on campus that do research, get research of the student body that we're then able to take to administrators and be able to take to the state to show these are things that students care about, and it better informs the work that we plan to do. We have come into this organization with so many ideas and so much work that we care about, but at the end of the day, we are absolutely going to be focusing on and working on the things that students convey they want us to work on. And to do that, we need to have a full understanding of what the student body needs and wants from us.
Last thing I'm going to ask before closing this out is, what would the first tangible concrete change or legislation be that you would enact if elected? What would the timeline be for that? Please be as in-depth as you want.
It's a big thing for me. This is really hard because I'm preparing for the debate that's happening tonight, and it's a 2-minute cutoff. And the number of times that I've gone into conversations that are 2 hours about something as minute as like a may or shall in the Constitution is crazy.
We have this thing where we play trivia, constitutional trivia.
Yeah,
We love it.
yeah.
We love it. It's just, I'm very passionate about the Constitution and what we do, and I love bringing it to my normal life too.
Yeah, to be very tangible, as far as the first thing we want to do, the first thing that happens throughout the year is how officers are onboarded, how we're trained. Lucia Rutan, who's the current ASUO Senate President, is supporting us as our campaign manager throughout this campaign, and she shared with us how she not only did not get a good onboarding or the training and resources she needed to become Senate President, she was not onboarded by the pro staff, period. Not a single meeting showing her how to navigate and how to run the body of ASUO Senate. When I heard that, I was so saddened, and especially somebody that's an educator. I know that when I joined ASUO, I really struggled with being able to go from putting on an event that was for 1,000 students and really struggle with that and didn't have the support I needed, to then going into ASUO, being expected to put on an event for 15,000 students where I'm coordinating with 30 food truck vendors, 60 craft vendors, student organizations, putting on an event, all that happened on week 3 of fall term as a second-year student. If we want ASUO to be accessible to more people, we need to provide adequate onboarding and training to make sure that they are equipped to make the changes that they want to make. As amazing, as much as I've learned this past year and how much I've learned, whenever I started ASUO, I barely knew how to send an email. I didn't know how to access the Google Drive. I didn't know how to do all these things. And the thing that's so hard about student government is that we are designed to change and improve every single year, and each administration is designed to have the tools and support that they need to be able to meet new needs for students. However, there are so many things that are foundational to how student government works that are not carried forward in onboarding processes.
So it's like a blank slate every single year.
Yeah, so that's a big thing that we care about, is we're not only wanting to take our experience and make it better for us this year. A big thing we talked about as far as having people that have been in ASUO in the past and having them run again is that it's this idea that ASUO is inaccessible because only people that have been in ASUO in the past can continue to do that work, because it took us an entire year to learn how to do that fully. And that's what's so challenging about it. So we hope to not only take the experience that we have, but take the experience that we have and foundationalize and institutionalize the experience that we have into comprehensive, long-lasting training and support for student leaders across the board, not just within ASUO. I, as a student leader within aspiring educators, needed so much more support with figuring out how to use Engage, run a financial platform, ask for a budget. I was given very little support with that, and I had a really hard time with it without the support I needed. That's a major reason why I'm running. I was campaigning today, and somebody asked me, "Oh, are you like going to college to be a politician? Are you studying poli-sci? Are you doing these things?" I said, "No, I'm studying to be a teacher. I want to be in a classroom, and I want to support people and help them make the change that they want to make on this, make it see on this campus." That goes to the people in ASUO, but that goes to literally every student on this campus. I want to be there to support them in making the changes they want to make. And students can't do that without the adequate training, support, and orientation resources to do that. So as far as just the timeline, I think something that's so foundational for us to start with is we've already put work into this, is working into making trainings that actually support every single person in student government to understand the history of it, to help with better transitions, to improve the transition timeline so that there's going to be more time where new officers can meet with officers that have already had their roles. More trainings that exist at us as students. We can't do this alone. We need to have support of other groups on campus. We need to have the support of other students on campus. Working with the Holden Leadership Center, working with other administrators that do jobs similar to ours. I had no idea how to reserve a room or how to plan an event, but there are administrators at this university that get paid significant salaries outside of student stipends, compared to student stipends, that know how to do this work and could have supported students in doing this. So I really care about the onboarding process and making sure that every single student is equipped as soon and as early as possible to make the change they want to make. And that expands our capacity to do as many things as possible that actively work for the student body.
Yeah. And regarding what you said, get into the weeds, this is something that we're ready to hit the ground running with the second we are able to start those meetings on cabinet structure and what we want in our cabinet and all of that. We already have plans laid out. We have exactly what branches we want to have. We want a whole department of HR instead of one person. And not only that, but we are truly passionate about preparing the students who have been elected into actually doing the work that they want to do, what they were elected to do here. And we have a ton of other things that we want to do within, but this has to be priority, creating a team, creating an environment in which we have the tools. Everyone in our team has the tools to actually be able to achieve everything that we have set and promise the student body that we will be achieving.
Any closing words?
I just really wanted to emphasize that I believe that collaboration is key and communication is the answer to everything. I really want for ASUO to collaborate with many more organizations, not only IFE funded organizations. We would love to interact more with anonymous student news and other news medias outside of the Daily Emerald. And I, for sure, my door is always open. I would love to schedule more events and maybe have something where we collaborate together formally. I think it'd be great to bring awareness to ASUO and try to bridge a gap that clearly exists between us and the student body.
Well, thank you. Now that the official questions are over, I can be a little more lax, but I appreciate you guys taking the time. I know that campaigning has to be absolutely insane. I can't imagine doing it week one. I really commend you guys, and it's evident how passionate you both are about this. I was at the town hall, and though it was mostly Slate members, everyone was still incredibly eloquent and thoughtful, and I thought it was an amazing show, so I hope more people are at the debate. Thank you guys so much for taking the time as well.
Seriously, thank you so much. I know that this is a little bit of a weird format, but I do just want to know that it's been so nice getting to talk with you and to get to have this platform to share what we care about with students. It's what we've been able to be doing this entire time during campaigning, and it's so amazing because it's something that we both put in so much work for such a long time.
I've been working on this since the 4th week of fall term.
Yeah.
I was back in Venezuela during winter break and I was just calling Cash and he was in Texas and there was time change and I was like, oh wait, give me 1 second. The Wi-Fi is not working. Let me move to my next window. Because back home the Wi-Fi is terrible. But it's so exciting to see how it's taken shape. And honestly, off the record, I truly love all the candidates that we have, not only in our slate, but in all the other slates and the presidential candidates as well. I'm so happy that there's more people. This is exactly what we wanted when it came into the last spring. I wanted more people to get involved. I wanted more people to care, to be interested. Honestly, regardless of the outcome, I'll just be happy that we had way more engagement this year and that there's actually people that are passionate about being an ASUO running.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. It's great to see passionate people.
Awesome. Seriously, been so nice talking with you.
Same. Big thanks to Cash and Maria. Make sure to check out their campaign Flock Forward. Voting starts Wednesday. Oh, and if you could send me a picture of your campaign, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
I'll send you some ones of the duck. I'll send you bunny. I keep on saying duck.
It's very funny. You keep doing that.
So
I'm just saying, I believe that next year if you have a bunny named Doug.
Our first option, our first thing we're doing.
Scratch that.
That is the legislation.
Class bet for the entire.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Bye.